ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.
We normally would call it Powernomics Thursday, but I don't even know what day it is. I think it might be Thursday. Thursday. It is Thursday. Okay, so it is Powernomics Thursday, and to celebrate Powernomics Thursday, you guys know that we get the chance to speak with and hear from the one and only, the extraordinary Dr. Claud Anderson. Now, Dr. Anderson, not only does he love you and love Black people just with all his heart, but he's also the author of a lot of books that everybody should have your kids reading during the quarantine. The books are called Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His website is powernomics.com. And so, Dr. Anderson, I want to ask you to get started. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm fine. And I still got 2 motivating factors that drive me in front of the screen every Thursday. That's you, about 50%. And the rest, I have this uncontrollable desire to be able to be with Black folk and try to prep them to be able to survive and prosper in our society. I've been like that ever since I was a young boy. And I know I get criticized. People say, Dr. Anderson, you're a racist. All you ever talk about is Black folk. I say, you're absolutely right. You're Johnny Skinny right, because I love Black folk, even though some of them, half might not be worth a quarter, but I love that other damn half because they did something else. I just love Black folk. I miss them. I miss the Black communities.
Well, you know, I tell you, I agree with you. You know, and I remember I heard, I think it was Farrakhan. I heard say this one time where he said Black people. He said y'all are difficult people to love. He said, and it made me think about it. I said, you know, because I'm thinking like, because some of my people are a little bit crazy. Some of my people are real damaged, you know, and it's real difficult, you know. Like I always want to help as many people as I can, but then sometimes, you know, you just run into situations that don't make no sense. Some folks you got to cut off, you know, and I just had to start telling people. I said, look, I'm a good person, but I'm not trying to let nobody exploit me, use me, or whatever. And so I think that when you talk about loving Black folks, I think about what you always talk about the importance of staying on code. You know, why we can't just say I love Black folks no matter what they're doing. If Black folks are acting out of pocket and acting ridiculous or whatever, or embarrassing themselves in the community, you have to draw a line. What do you think about that?
Right, and that's compounded by the fact that you got a lot of Blacks out here who are totally adamantly opposed to Black folk. They have a negative attitude about their own people. They suffer from a neurosis. It's called Samboitis and angiomitis. What they want to do is to please white folks, regardless of the circumstance. They see any Black person that's sounding off in favor of Black folk, advocating that Black folk have a positive Blackness about themselves. And as I indicate, not only that Blacks need to stand up and profess that they are exceptional people. They're special people. There's nobody on this earth like Black folk. You're exceptional in all respects, and especially in this country. And that's to stand up. Don't let anybody use anything that negates you or subordinates you or makes you equal to all other groups. People say, well, Dr. Anderson, you know, Black folk ain't better than nobody else. Yes, they are. I said, my mothers tell me, you can't say you're better than everybody else. I said, you damn skinny, I can. I said, Black folk built the damn nation. They're entitled to better, more respect. But I want Black folk like your listeners, tell them all, watch out for 2 groups. One is called the provocateurs. There's some Black folk that get paid to go out and try to degrade Black folk, particularly those Black folk who try to come to Black folk assistance. They're always trying to find something negative, and even if there's no negative things to find, they'll try to fabricate some just to try to pull that Black folk down. They're paid. They're either paid by the dominant white society, or they're paid by some of these various gender groups, or non-gender groups, or neutral gender groups, or handicapping groups, or poor people. They're paid to try to either subordinate Black folk or make themselves equal to Black folk. And the other group, as I say, to watch out historically for the Sambos. Sambos, they'll always show up and on any television screen or any movie. Just watch Trump. Whenever Trump speaks, you always see right behind him, you're gonna see one Sambo sitting there, one Black face in the crowd. Or you go to the Fox channel, you'll see Sambos on there all the time trying to be broadcasters. Those people are paid to sell out their own people. And they get away with it because they know in their own mind what white folks have been telling them, saying, you know what? You can sell your people out. Like Dr. Anderson said, they don't have any money or resources. They can't reward you or punish you. So you can say anything you want about them anytime you want them. But I want your religion to start saying anytime they catch a black person selling out black people that are trying to struggle to help them, nail them. Do anything you can to excommunicate them out of the race. And then make sure everybody knows it. Don't do any business with them. Don't talk to them. Leave the room when they show up and cross the street when you're walking. Do not associate, affiliate, or identify with any black provocateur, a Sambo, or Aunt Samuel is always trying to sell black folk out, whether on the Fox channel or they call themselves liberal, and be on the remaining channels. But those are the three groups I say watch out for. Don't let them do it. But I tell black folk, it's your responsibility. I tell you, nail them every chance you get. And I learned that a long time ago down in Puerto Rico when I was invited. I'm extending this conversation, so let me take another 2 minutes. Down in Puerto Rico, and when I was with the President of the United States, they invited a big collection of people throughout this country and in some other places of the world come down to Puerto Rico, have a big discussion on racism, and so we can understand it. And during the course of that meeting in Puerto Rico, I kept the fort. I don't know what the fort was. We met in that fort. And I kept bringing up the issue about black folk and about how we need an accountability system in our race. Even though we lack the resources to be able to reward and punish people, we still need an accountability system. And I talked like that the first morning, all morning. I went out in the hallway and about 3 people came and followed me out. One was an Indian, Apache Indian. Another was what's his name? His name's slipping now. He was from Alpha Wong from San Francisco State. And he was an Asian, Chinese extraction. We had Goldie Chu, which is a Puerto Rican from Connecticut. We had a whole bunch of people of all different racial ethnicity extractions. They jumped all over me and said, Dr. Anderson, we're sick and tired of you coming to these major meetings and always spend all your time talking about black folk this and black folk that, and black folk don't have an accountability. They said, let's get one thing straight. They said, I said, what's that? They said, everybody got accountability except you damn black folk. That's the bottom line of it. I said, what do you mean by that? And this Apache Indian said, Dr. Anderson, even though you might see these Western movies where you always see the cavalry and you see 2 or 3 Indians leading them out as scouts, trying to take them back, show them where the rest of the Indians are hiding. He said, we had a rule though in accountability in the Indian tribe. He says, any Indian that began to develop an attitude about selling his own people out and going with the whites or going with the military or going with the cavalry, they said the rule was this: if he ever showed up back, it was an Indian camp, bringing the troops back, whites men back, he said, with the first arrow we shot would get him. To always kill the Indian scout first. Get him if you don't ever kill another cavalryman, get the Indian scout. They said they said the second thing, if he doesn't ever come back trying to sell you out, he want to live with support white folk, make him move out of the Indian camp and live outside the fort. So if you ever watch these movies, you always see some little teepees all around the fort. That's what they meant. That means if you're going to sell out your people, you have to get out of your tribe and go with white folk and live with them. He said, and Booster Money, who was a Chicano at that time, she says, we have the same rule. Our rule is that anytime you try to sell Chicanos out, our rule is that we make a basic decision. Always go with your own people. Don't ever leave your own people to go support somebody else. And then Alpha Wong from Chinatown, I remember him, he told me, he said, we had a key role in Chinatown for years in San Francisco, where we would not even let white folk bring in police into Chinatown. We said we have our own police, and that's what I tell black folk to do, get their own police force. Don't have anybody else. Don't be hiring white cops trying to get a balance of representation on the police force in your own community. You get 100% black, live there, you should be 100% black on the police force. But anyway, he says in Chinatown, the rule was that if you ever sell a Chinese person out in Chinatown, he said the rule was you had to get out of town before the sun went down. If you stayed in town after the sun went down, 9 times out of 10, you floated in the bay with your throat cut. They said we had 2 groups. One was called the hatchet men, the other was called the tongues. They were waiting for you when the sun went down. They said, you black folk got to learn how to have your own accountability system. And so we'll make a long story that was real long, make it short now, is that we have to say have some accountability. Anytime you see a black person on the TV or any place selling out, it's people for the benefits of other groups, somebody other than black folk, nail him any way you can nail him. Excommunicate him out of the race, or deprive him of his resources, or deprive him of an income, but you nail him for trying to sell out his own people. And that's my end of my little long story, which I tried to make short.
No, I don't think it's a long story at all. I think it's a story that needs to be told because I think that we don't, I think we as a community don't know anything about what it means to be on code, things like that. And I think that, when you talk about dealing with enemies, one of the things I learned about warfare is that when you're dealing with your enemy, you got to realize you got enemies both foreign and domestic. I was talking to my fiance today about how agent provocateurs work, and I said, I know there's some agents around, and I said, from what I understand, and I think it was Anthony Browder, who's a great historian, a smart black man that I spoke to about this, and he explained that, or he was sharing with me that he said the job of the provocateur a lot of times is to just create confusion and chaos and doubt. So they're not looking to resolve things. They're not looking to say, okay, I have a problem with that person. I'm going to work it out. Let's figure this out, or let's find a way to come together. Their goal is to discredit and attack and to create chaos where you don't know who to believe. You don't know who to listen to, so, and I've seen that. I've actually seen people where I wondered what the agenda was when maybe they would talk about you and they would say, Dr. Claud Anderson, he ain't this, he ain't that, he's this, he that. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if you doing all this attacking, but you ain't got nothing constructive to say, what good are you? If you ain't doing nothing constructive out of this, if you're not saying anything that says, I say this out of love and respect, I want to see this man celebrated for the great work that he's done. Here's some areas where I'd like to see us do more. That's acceptable. But when you are just simply seeking to cut something off at the knees and destroy it, that makes me wonder what your role is in the community. What value are you bringing? And I think that we have to think about this a little bit more as a community, because I think that most of our greatest enemies tend to be people that actually look like us. What do you think, Dr. Anderson?
I thoroughly agree with you. See, as a matter of fact, I've been saying for the longest that we have to develop a system of accountability. And because white folk and it should come out into our community as a code of conduct. We need a code of conduct that will be able to isolate these individuals, identify them and isolate them and excommunicate them. And see, unfortunately, we're still abiding by the code of conduct that white folk put out for black folk in 1870, 5 years after the Civil War ended. White folk came out with a code of conduct saying that now that you black folk are free, you're going to be quasi-free, but you're not going to have any resources. You're going to be quasi-free, but a few of you might get a few jobs in the public sector. And if you get a job in the public sector, here's what you must remember. 3 things. 1 is do not try to advocate anything for the entire black race as a group. Anything you want to advocate, it must be on an individual basis. What they want to say is that, yes, we may have enslaved you, mistreated you, castrated, lynched you, and exploited you as a group. We can narrow down your impact by saying you can't ever talk about the group issue. You got to talk about only a single issue, that what happened to you with the whole standing. And that went into the Supreme Court system, which means now if you go to the Supreme Court, you can't go there and say, I'm fighting for the race. They said, no, you got to come here and fight only for yourself. That way we got you outnumbered 1,000, 1,000,000 to 1. And so that was the first thing he told them, that you cannot fight for black folk as a group. 2 is that when you come into a public job, a public sector, doing anything, become a visible person, never also try to hold white folk accountable for what they did to black folk during slavery. That was the second cardinal rule for it. And thirdly, if you get into a public office, don't bring a black agenda to the public forum. And so black folk have been abiding by that ever since in the 1870s. And that's why just about a few weeks ago, here's a black man, the highest ranking black man in the Democratic Party, speaking on the issue of reparation. And I said, I cannot believe this guy is going that far back into Samboism and Samboism. He stands up and says, I'm opposed to immigration. This is the highest ranking black in the National Democratic Party. And he's also a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. He said, I'm opposed to immigration. And he said, I'm opposed to it. And he tells whites this as a provocateur from our own race. I'm opposed to it because it's very hard or difficult for us to be able to decide who should get reparations. And so that would be hard. and then decide how much they would get. That's too hard. And the best thing to do is not just for us as Black folks, forget about reparations. If we're going to do reparations, give reparations to everybody. He comes out proposing reparations for whites too, poor whites as well as Blacks. Anybody and everybody gets reparations. And that leads you over to what you mentioned to me earlier about this whole new $2 trillion budget they're going to come out with to try to deal with the virus. They always want to use these very broad, ambiguous terms. And here's a Black man, the highest ranking Black man in the United States Congressional Black Caucus from South Carolina, recommending that what we should do is forget about reparations unless we can give it to everybody. He ignores the fact that everybody wasn't enslaved. Everybody has been lynched, castrated, subordinated, exploited, misused, denied resources for 460 years, only Black folk. But you got those kind of provocateurs, and right now they're still sitting in the Democratic Party. As we begin to go into this major election, here's Black folk making up 38 to 40% of the Democratic Party, and here's a Black man in the Democratic Party at the highest level saying, y'all don't need anything. And see, Jesse's made the same kind of statements years ago talking about, we don't want a handout, we want a hand up. I said, what the hell are you talking about? You don't need a handout. You need any damn thing you can get. Elbow up, you get elbow up, anything you can get. You get it and take it and keep on going. Don't tell, if you don't want any reparations or you don't want a handout, keep your mouth shut and go home and sit down and look at TV. Go watch Oprah on TV.
Well, you know what, Dr. Anderson, was funny. And by the way, everybody, I was speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. I want to mention his website and his books. His website is powernomics.com. That's where we can get his books. A lot of you have kids that are at home, for the whole quarantine thing. This is a great time to introduce your children to Powernomics principles. It's about Black economic power. That's really, really important. And so given that you got this time with your kids, given that you got this time, away from the plantation, I encourage you to use this as a transformational opportunity. You're about to get this stimulus check. Take that money and start a damn business. Take that money and make an investment. Take that money and change your life. Step forward. This is an opportunity. Whenever there's this kind of chaos, it's an opportunity for you to make a meaningful long-term transformation. So I encourage you to do that. Dr. Claud Anderson's website is powernomics.com. That's where his books are, at powernomics.com. How many of you, raise your hand in the chat, type yes if you have already obtained some of Dr. Anderson's books, or you have them on your bookshelf, or you have your children reading Powernomics. Shout it out so everybody else can hear you, because this is something, and I'm putting the pressure on you. I'm really pushing you on this because I'm not asking. I'm strongly encouraging. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm really, really pushing you guys to take this seriously because we need solutions. And the reason that I bring Dr. Anderson on a regular basis is because we don't have a lot of elders that are giving us real solutions. They're giving us a bunch of BS. This man is giving us something that we can actually sink our teeth into. It's a power plan. It doesn't have to be every piece of your plan, but it should be part of your plan, because I know it was part of my plan. So by the way, everybody, please if you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button, share and subscribe button. Also on Instagram, I want to say hi to you guys. My Instagram is The Real Boyce Watkins. And I just want you guys to know, I think I saw somebody come in here that said something about Dr. and called him a negative name or something like this. Is like, who's this idiot talking, or something crazy they said. So just so you know, I just need you to understand this platform is for intelligent Black people, and being here is a privilege. It's not a right. We don't beg people to come through here. If you jump out a code too far, you're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to go because intelligent and productive Black people are talking, and the coons need to stay out the door. So you can go somewhere else. You're welcome to do that, but you are not going to be allowed to stay if you come up here and show an ounce of disrespect. You can disagree with Dr. Anderson, but you cannot disrespect. We will not allow that. So if you agree with me, if you are okay with what I just said, then somebody type amen in the chat, because that's what we believe. It's time for us to get serious as a people. It's for us to be taken seriously. You won't be taken seriously until you become serious. So Dr. Anderson, let me ask you this question.
Let me tap on that before you leave that point. If anybody calls in on your show and tell you that they disagree with me and call me a bad name, you tell them, first of all, go back and look at, tell them to pull out their resume, pull out mine, and then compare them. If you have not had the educational experiences I've had, I got 6 damn university degrees, okay? More than 1 doctorate. 2, I've been at every level, the highest levels of government, from the federal government all the way down to the lowest level in the state and city government, period. I'm the only Black that's ran national campaigns for governors and presidents. I'm the only one that's headed up international trade programs in the third world nations, where I was taking resources in everything from the Caribbean to South America, to Latin America, Venezuela, Cuba, France, England, and Africa. I headed up the trade missions. I wasn't a part of it. I was the only black I know in history that was over the education system for an entire state for 8 years. That's everything from the highest, from universities to the elementary schools. And I know a lot of blacks might talk about, well, we got some black professors. Hell, I was over all the damn professors. I was over every damn professor in the entire state of Florida, period. I headed up education for the state for 8 straight years. I can go on and on. I'm the only person I know to start all these major industries in the country. You tell them if their resume can't match mine, I don't want to hear a damn thing they got to say. And if you don't have those kind of academic training, you've not had that professional training, you've not had that political involvement across multiple levels for national and international politics, I don't want to hear a damn thing you got to say, period. You tell them to call me and tell me that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, there you guys heard it. I just, people can believe what they want to believe. I just don't want them, hanging out, being destructive. If people can disagree, or if people want to disagree, they can disagree. But it just like I apply the same rule to myself. If I'm gonna disagree with you, I'm gonna do so respectfully, unless I don't want to be your friend. If I don't need to be your friend, then I don't care. But if I want us to maintain a relationship, then I'm just going to correct you, and then we're going to move forward in a productive way. But
But boys, they should have a legitimate reason for disagreeing. You can't just sit up and disagree with somebody that's been trained and experienced in doing something for 50 or 60 years. You can't sit there and say, because you sat in a bathroom and a notion came to your head or to your butt, and all of a sudden you run out and say, I disagree. Based on what? What do you disagree with? What's your basis? What's your criteria for disagreeing on any damn thing? If you haven't got a healthy, strong, intensive background in economics and politics and education, then don't disagree with me. Just keep your mouth shut and keep on going and keep doing what you've been doing for the last 50 or 60 years for yourself, but don't take any of my people with you. If you're stuck on stupid with Gorilla Glue, don't try to take some other blacks with you. You go down the road by yourself.
Well, I say disagreeing is one thing, but discrediting and disrespecting, that's not something that benefits anybody. So I'm not interested in any of that. And so Dr. Anderson, let me ask you this. So right now we got this whole stimulus thing. Congress just passed the biggest stimulus package in history. We are in the historic times. Right now, just to draw the picture for everybody that's watching, historically, the unemployment roll was I think 3 million people applied for unemployment for the first time. The previous record was like 680,000. So we're talking about historic levels of unemployment at the level of a Great Depression. If you compare it to the Great Depression, we're kind of there in terms of unemployment numbers. GDP is expected to sink at a level that matches the Great Depression. The stock market decline has sunk to a level that matches or comes close to matching the Great Depression. So we're running into really tough times. The government's trying to pull us out of it with stimulus and everything else. Everybody's going to get a check, stuff like that. And I figured with you as a person who understands economics and politics very well, you might have some thoughts in terms of how Black folks might view what's happening now and how to best respond to what's going on, in the world.
Well, thank you. And I will try to respond. First of all, when you use that collective word called we, then Black folk need to understand that does not include them. That's not inclusive of Black folk in anything. The we and us and our, that is talking about everybody but Black folk. If we go through that stimulus package, you have to understand, they start talking about, for instance, we're going to pick the most vulnerable people in the society, and we're going to reward and recognize them and give them some money. And they're not talking about Black folk. They're talking about, we're talking about poor people. Well, there's a vast difference between Black poverty and white poverty in this country. So just because somebody used the word poor people, don't you buy into that collectivism, that ambiguous grouping that they use. Because right now, the median family income for a white person in poverty in the United States is about $19,000 or $20,000 worth of net worth, period. That's what it is. Black folks, the net worth for the typical Black in America in poverty is about $2,000. We got over 38% of all the Black people in America right now are beneath the damn poverty line, period. Another third sitting on the poverty line, which means that if you put that third together, you got 68% of the Black folk in America right now that are almost null and void because they don't have any money and resources. And they either on the poverty line or beneath the poverty line. There's a vast difference between white poverty and Black poverty. Don't get confused by white folk talking about we're going into the poverty. We're going to help poor people. They're not talking about Black folk. They're talking about poor whites, basically, because poor whites got almost $20,000 worth of net worth. Black folks something like a 2. And pretty soon, that's in around 10 or 20 years, Black folks' net income worth is going to be down to about 0. As a matter of fact, start talking about how does it impact Black folk. You're going to talk about the vulnerable or the most vulnerable among us. Then you should be talking about Black people. Right now, in every respect you can name, Dr. Watkins, Black folk are the leaders as indicators in everything that's bad. Right now, Black people in this country, the poverty rate exceeds any other poverty rate in America. Nobody tells you that. The second thing is the rate of incarceration in this country. Rate of incarceration is over 51% of all the people in prison are Black people, even though you make up about 13% of the population. So if you start talking about doing something for the criminal elements or people that's been misused, abused, and denied justice, you better start with Black people. Black people are the ones that make up the incarcerated group. You start talking about victims of homicides right now. Black folk got the highest homicide rate in the United States, far exceeds whites. As a matter of fact, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's annual report says that out of the homicides in America, that Black folk that 67% of all the hate crimes in America are committed against Black people. Period. It didn't say it said against Asians, Arabs, Indians, anybody else, midgets, one-legged, one-eyed people. It says against Black people. 67% of all the hate crimes. And nobody's going to identify this. You got to start prioritizing and indicating things based on a ranking order of oppression, misuse, and injustice. You start talking about things like denial of access to money for loans and mortgages. Black folk lead are #1 denied people in the country. We start talking about obesity. Black folk are the #1s with health problems in the country, with diabetes and stuff like that, obesity and diabetes. Black folk also the #1 leaders in the country in death sentence, the misuse of the death sentence. I can go on and on. Black folk are #1 in everything that's bad. Black folk right now, Black folk are carrying, Dr. Watkins, they're carrying 7 to 8 times their fair share of everything that's bad. So you start talking about putting out a recover budget or $2 trillion budget for the most vulnerable. Who are you talking about? You're going to talk, you put it in very broad terms. So we're going to give everybody what you just said. We give everybody $1,000 to $1,200 to $2,000. That doesn't mean very much to no damn Black people. For $1,000, you can give a one-time shot. You can give $1,000 to white people who got a net worth that's almost 3,500 times greater than Black folk. The average American right now, across the board, the average American has 3,500 times the wealth of the average Black person. You're going to give $1,000 to each one and pretend they're equal. The worst thing you can do is to pretend that somehow that unequals are equal. That adds insults to justice, point one. Point two, the worst thing you can do is try to pretend that somehow that all people have contributed equally to develop this nation. That's the second biggest lie that was ever told. Black folk would develop this nation with their labor way before 99% of the people ever arrived in this country. I can go on and on, but watch those very broad in terms that they're going to use in that budget. They start talking about who's going to get the money. They start talking about, well, we're going to give it to small businesses. They're not talking about Blacks. Hell, Blacks have less than 1% of the damn businesses in the country. Even Hispanics that came in the country, been here less than 40 years. They got 3 to 5 times more damn businesses than Black folk, and the more income in those businesses than Black folk. They haven't been in the country for 30 or 40 years. Asians right now lead in income streams in the United States, in income and businesses. Mm-hmm. 1 out of every 10 Asians in business. And Asians, they've been in this country less than about 35, 40 years.
So let me jump in and ask you about that. And I'm sure, because a lot of people I'm sure have that question too. What do you think about the fact that when the coronavirus started off and Trump started calling it the Chinese virus because it came out of China, which I didn't really care, but some people saw that as racist, whatever. But they started actually passing legislation to give economic aid and other forms of support to Asian businesses because they felt that they would be discriminated against. I don't know about you guys. You can tell me, give me a yes or no in the chat how you felt about it. But I was a little bit offended by that. You know, I was one of those people that said, you know, wait a minute. So you got Black politicians, and you even have Black politicians pushing for aid and support of Asian businesses, and they ain't never done that for Black businesses. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
But you just hit the nail right on the head. Again, you got blacks in every respect, even when they've been incorporated into the political structure, they're still anti-black, and even though they are black. Just like during the Obama administration, while he was in order, and he had his vice president, which was Biden, to go out to California. To guess what he went and gave $500 million, which is $500 million. Again, guess who he gave it to? He gave it to Hispanic businesses out there. Not one penny for black folk. Nobody ever gives it any benefits to black folk. They use it very broad and ambiguous terms somehow. We're gonna give it to poor people, to minorities. What I want black folks to start doing is be opposed to anybody use these very broad ambiguous terms when they start talking about benefits and resources, because they use that as a cover, as a hide, like Mandrake the magician. They pull something over your head so that you can't see that within that context, black folk can get shut out and stay on the bottom. And right now, all the benefits that are going to be coming to anybody during this crisis, they're going to use very broad terms. Not one person, not one politician, Democrat or Republican, or even Trump or anybody else going to come out and say, here's what I'm going to do specifically and solely for black people, period, because they're carrying the heaviest load. But you always got this obsession in our society politically to say, well, whatever happens, we're always going to take we're going to use that old farmer analogy when they say, when it's city slicker asked the farmer once, but all those rocks and all those bricks and all that wood has to be moved down the road. You only got 2 horses and 1 little wagon. How are you going to move all that stuff? And the farmer said to the city slicker, the wilderness ass is going to pull the heaviest load. The wilderness ass will pull the heaviest load. They use that in economics and politics. I'm just telling you that from the national and international level, when I carry up trade missions, black folk in this country are viewed as being the wilderness ass. They carry everything. That's why when they're used as a platform in this society. Black folk are a platform. So that means that any group coming to this country for immigration purposes, coming in, they come in above and over black folk. And they're going to use black folk in the same way black folk have ever been used, as a platform to ingratiate or to elevate anybody but black people. Let me give you an example. During slavery, black folk had a specific value. And let me go back up a second. We got groups of march across America called Black Lives Matter. Nobody ever asked, what you mean when you say Black Lives Matter? Matter to whom? To whom do black matters? The damn shit doesn't matter to whites. Otherwise, it would mean you're shooting black folk and castrating and lynching them. Black folk right now hold the world's record for being the most longest enslaved people on the earth for 460 years, and still on the bottom. They're still classified as an permanent underclass. By the United States Department of Commerce in 2014, 6 years ago, they're still classified as being totally on the bottom, exactly where they were during slavery. Now, when you hear these group marches with Black Lives Matter, your question should be, matter to whom? And for what? And what you have to go back and say, let's go back to slavery now. Black folk had a value during slavery. You know what the value was, Dr. Watkins? The value was black was black's bodies, black bodies. This country invested almost $8 billion. The highest amount of investment of money in the country during slavery was in the purchase and buying of slaves, period. And that they had about 5 million blacks, like when slavery ended, they had already invested over $8 billion just in owning slaves. Now, what was the value when you said Black Lives Matter? They did matter. What did they matter? They mattered to the slave owner. They were cash value, point one. Point two is that what they paid for a slave and what they wanted to get back from him in return was of at least minimally a 15% profit margin for every slave. Every year, the slave master on average would spend about $5 on feeding and clothing a slave, but he wanted that slave to be able to produce at least a 45 to 50% return so that he can make a profit off of it. So Black Lives Matter because of what? Because what they represented in value and slave as an asset. They were a cash asset. Point two is that the stock market in this country was regulated off of black folk. Now in this budget you're going to be talking about following this crisis now, the $2 trillion they're going to be talking about allocating it. They're trying to save Wall Street. Nobody tried to save Wall Street during slavery. Blacks were the Wall Street. At the back of a black was where the value was. We didn't have a Wall Street at that point in time. Only Wall Street we had was a little neighborhood in New York where black folk were forced to live, was called Wall Street. They had a brick wall there with black folk, slaves were behind that wall. Then that's where the Wall Street concept came from. That's where you talk about Wall Street. And that's what, and so the black folk with the black folks' backs was a labor in this clan, in this society. That the stock market was regulated off the value of a slave. As the value of a slave went up or went down, so did the commodities on the market. They went up and down: corn, tobacco, rice, indigo, based on the value of a slave. That's where that Wall Street concept came. Now in this budget they're gonna put out, again, Wall Street gonna get the money. But now, because it doesn't pertain to black folk anymore, and when small businesses, that's talking about white folks and other ethnic groups got the business. Blacks own and control 1/2 or 1% of the businesses. They aren't getting very much out of that. You start talking about money for those who are the most vulnerable. And poor whites have about almost 10 times what $1,000, the value of a net worth of a poor white person in poverty. So what I'm saying is that the same game is going to keep you right where you were before the crisis and the virus appeared. You're going to be in the same spot. But if you're going to play the game to win, you better start picking up those books. The books I put out there, 5 books: Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, Dirty Little Secrets, and the Black History Reader. Those books are designed to show you all these things and take you through it, so that even though you might be exploited, misused, and subordinated, get those books and read them so you get a better understanding. With the primary premise that the Powernomics push, and this is it, is that a prepared mind and a prepared community is ready and can survive and prosper. But you must have a prepared mind and prepared community to be able to prosper and compete in our society. We don't have that. That's what my books are designed to give black folk.
All right, everybody who just tuned in, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. While you have your kids at home, I encourage you to introduce your children to Powernomics principles. That will not just make them assets to the black community, because we need economic soldiers. That's what we need. We need economic and political soldiers. But it also will be something that they're going to thank you, for the rest of their lives. They're going to thank you for raising them on principles that will make them successful. No different from the way, a wealthy businessman thanks his father or his mother for introducing him to wealth at an early age. When you look at the people that you feel are oppressive to you, like the Donald Trumps, things like that, you look in their families, everything comes from the parent. Everything comes from the parent. So everybody in here that's a parent, just say something in the chat. Say yes if you have a child, because I really want you to really be thinking about your children. This is a intergenerational game that we're playing, not a one-dimensional game. It's not an individual sport. It's a team sport, as Powernomics Principles teaches you. So I need you to teach your kids now to be great teammates, because if you don't educate them properly, then other people are going to miseducate your child, and you're going to have an educated fool. You're going to have somebody who thinks that because they went to Harvard and Brown University and all that, that they're somehow a successful black person, and they're not representing black excellence at all. Because you can't claim to represent black excellence if you are not in some meaningful way building the black community in a long-term and sustainable way. Building the community looks different from what they teach you. It ain't just I went to a white university and gave them all my money so I can get a great job working next to a white man so I can live in a white neighborhood. Building the black community means that I went and got the skills that I needed, and I came back to my community. I created a company that employs 300 black people, and I'm building wealth in that community. We're owning the real estate in our community, keeping the property values up, making that community safe and clean and a wonderful place to live. That's black excellence. So really, even achieving the goal means that you got to know what the goal is. You got to have the right definitions. Getting to the finish line ain't enough. You got to know which finish line you're supposed to be running to. Because a lot of y'all, unfortunately, a lot of our best athletes, so to speak, our best players in the black people game are putting the ball in the wrong basket. So that's what it is, Dr. Anderson. When I see, really highly educated black people who ain't doing nothing for the community, it's almost like having LeBron James on your basketball team, and he keeps putting the ball in the other basket and says, "Look at me, I scored 50 points today." It's like, no, the basket's this way. But if you're miseducated, they have books like The Miseducation of the Negro. That's real. And so one thing I'll say here, Dr. Anderson, by the way, before I move on, everybody, take a second right now. Please hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button. And everybody on Instagram, you guys are on my phone. My phone might die at any moment. So if it does die, you can just go to drboystv.com and you can watch the rest of the conversation. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is, Dr. So right now, right, we're in this situation where everybody's quarantined. Now, the quarantine, I think that's a story in itself, because I don't know about everybody watching, but being quarantined really actually had a soothing effect on me, where it forced me to get home, sit still, be with my family, think about my life. You know, the kids are not at school every day, so we're getting to know the kids. We're educating the kids in the house every day. You know, and I think that what Black people can do, and I'd like to get your take on this, Dr. Anderson. I'm not even going to frame it as a question. I'm just going to make a statement. I believe that in this moment, this is your opportunity to escape whatever it was that trapped you in the first place. Two things that trap you, in my opinion, if you're Black in this country, that destroy you. One is 97% of all Black people are working for a white person. That just like it was right after slavery. You know, I think that if I'm trying to get away from that, if I'm one of these millions of Black people who hates working for white folks every day, I use some of that stimulus money to learn how to start a business, right? Or to figure out a way to make that transition, right? Two, another way that we are negatively affected. Our kids every day are going to school being educated by white people who hate their guts and who are teaching them the wrong stuff, ain't teaching them at all. So the kids come out all mangled and messed up. I mean, just all over the damn place. You know, brains ain't even working right. And we still somehow stuck to this idea that white people are better at educating Black people than Black people could ever be. That's an inferiority complex. So if I'm a parent and I'm in that situation, I might be strategizing on ways to use this opportunity as a chance to just change everything. You know, make a flip. Like you've been in this abusive relationship with white supremacy all these years. Sometimes, you know, so now, you know, it's like how you have a wife who's in an abusive marriage who waits till her husband goes out of town. And then while he's out of town, she packs her stuff and leaves. I think that while they're letting you come home and be with your family, that maybe you make a long-term transition so that maybe you can move on to a different life. Maybe you're running a business now. Maybe you're working from home, or you're working online, or you're educating your kids through a homeschool network. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Anderson?
I think you hit the nail on the head, because what you're really advocating is that we should need to reverse what we started doing in the 1960s. And we started with the civil rights movement. What the civil rights movement did was strip Black folk of all their resources, strip them of their communities, strip them of the ability to be independent, self-sufficient, and to be able to rely on themselves, to be able to provide the basic necessities of life, right where they live, right in their own neighborhood. And see, what's happening now is that we are extremely vulnerable, because right now we don't have one single Black community in America, period. We're 100% consumers now and almost zero producers. We don't have that. When I was a kid, we had communities, we had doctors to be able to handle medical any kind of viruses or medical interventions or attacks on the body, or accidental, whether it was inflicted. We don't have that anymore. There aren't very many Black doctors in the Black community in America anymore. They're not. All our Black engineers are gone because we don't have a community. We don't have Black doctors. If you go right now to the hospital, most of the people are going to be waiting on you are not Blacks. They're Indians and Arabs and everybody else coming to the country. You don't have a community. And so you're very vulnerable right now. You can't sustain yourself. You don't produce very much of anything. And where are the major Black grocery stores, supermarkets? When I was a kid, we had supermarkets and grocery stores. Right now, in the midst of this crisis, where are Black folk going to get their food? Where are they getting it from? Where are the Black folk going to go get their medications for any regular illness, common illness they already had before the virus even arrived? Where are they getting their medication from? They don't have the drug. Where are the clinics and the hospitals in the Black community? We used to have Black hospitals and Black clinics. We used to have Black doctors and nurses. We used to have Black drug stores. We used to have Black grocery markets, supermarkets. You don't have a damn thing now. And so you're very vulnerable, very vulnerable. You're sitting there now where they quarantine you, saying stay in your house. And even you get out, by the time you get out, you got to go to somebody else's neighborhood across town or someplace else to get it. Black folk are in extreme danger right now. And that's why I've been advocating from day one that we start rebuilding these communities. And Martin Luther King, it dawned on him right before he got assassinated, what I've been saying about 8 years before he got into that situation. I was always opposed to social integration, because what you said by social integration is that we can never be anything unless a black child is sitting next door to a white, in the same classroom as beside a white child. That through osmosis, if a white child is sitting there, the learning will creep off a white child, crawl across the floor, crawl up a black folk's leg, and enter his head if he's black, sitting next to a white person. That's called social integration. That black children cannot learn unless they're sitting beside a white child. That I was totally opposed to in the 1950s. I still oppose it. Black children can learn. They can be effective. They got good black teachers and instructors. They got a good, healthy education environment in their own community. Right now, 75% of the damn black kids in America are being bussed out of their community over to white communities to get an education. I go to a place like Detroit, Michigan now, 92% black city. Guess what? All the black kids are being bused into the white schools or in the charter schools. That whole concept of charter schools started in Florida when I was over education for the state of Florida. They said, whites said, you know what? We're so opposed to integration. This is our chance to really nail black folks' butts to the wall. What we'll do is that we'll impose integration by extracting all the money out of the public school system. The public school system was really set up for black children back in the 1860s to educate all those millions of black folk coming out of slavery. And let's go in now, and what we'll do is that we'll try to bankrupt the public school system by underfunding it, and that way it'll fail. And when it fails, we'll set up religious academies, religious schools, segregated academies, and charter schools. So all that money would go into the white community, go back to the white community again. That's why 20 years ago I checked, we had a $108 billion in educational programs in black communities across America. They put this in the charter schools. We want every penny of that. We're gonna make sure we set up charter schools and show black folk how to love charter schools instead of the public schools that was set up to benefit them. I said, good God, what does it take to wake our people up?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a mess, and it's going to take a lot of work. But I will say this, I think that, first of all, I want everybody, we always do our B1 ritual. Dr. Anderson always talks about how your blackness has to come first. And so that means that if you believe that black people come first, if you believe that your community matters more than any other community, type B1 in the chat. B1 is our philosophy. That's what we believe on this platform. Doesn't mean other people don't matter. It just means we matter the most to us. It doesn't mean that you can't be gay, straight, Democrat, Republican, whatever you are, that's fine. But you're black first. And type B1 in the chat if you agree with that. And Dr. Anderson, we do that B1 ritual because of you. You know, you in Powernomics always talked about vertical issues versus horizontal issues, and why remembering that you're black first allows you to avoid the confusion that comes when you start grabbing onto other issues, you know, whether it's something presented by LGBT or something presented by feminists or something presented by Democrats or Republicans. You just always say we should start with a conversation about being black first. Can you kind of talk about that, like your horizontal issues versus vertical issues?
Right. Okay, I will do that. For instance, when Winston-Salem, North Carolina, let me use that. Let me jump all the way to the end of what I was going to say to you, walk back into it. In Winston-Salem, North Carolina, we had black communities there, and I love those black communities. And in that black community, we had some of our own businesses there. We had for instance, Martin Luther King was talking about integrating buses, white buses, so that black folk could sit on the front of them. I didn't care about blacks sitting on front of white buses. As a child, the fun was on the back of the bus. That's what we had fun, sitting on the back. We had fun. We didn't care, give a damn about no damn sitting on the front of the bus. And secondly, in Winston-Salem, we had our own buses. We had the Safe Bus Company. So you can look it up on your computer. You want SAFE, called Safe Bus. We didn't have just one or two buses. We had over 500 buses. And our buses were not only service the black neighborhood, it serviced the white neighborhoods too. And guess what? Blacks first, all of our drivers were black, our mechanics were black, electricians were black, administration was black, and we took care of black folks in the black communities. Now whites rode our bus. You know, we didn't tell them they could sit on the front of the black buses. We didn't care. We give a damn. You know why? Because we understood. And my family was one of the four families that owned the black bus line in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, because we understood that if the bus is moving at a decent rate of speed, it doesn't make any difference whether you sit on the back of the bus or the front of the bus, because the back of the bus will be where the front of the bus was in a matter of a second if it's moving. So who cared where you got off, where you sat on the damn bus? But what we cared about was that who was collecting the money from the bus for fees and for paying to ride the bus. That money went into the black pockets, went into our corporations, our businesses. That's where we hire our own people. We had our own not on bus lines. We had our own cab companies. Whites had 3 cab companies in Winston-Salem. They had the Bluebird and the Yellow Cab. They had 2. They had Bluebird and Yellow Cab. We had 2 cab companies. We had the Camel City Cab Company and the Harris Cab Companies. We rode in our own buses, in our own cabs. But guess what? When they integrated, blacks didn't want to ride in the black cabs anymore. Nor did they want to ride on the black buses anymore. And so when Martin Luther King all them integrated the buses down in Montgomery, Alabama, that they constantly every year celebrating, we integrated the buses. Who gives a damn? Because when that movement, and they might have integrated the buses out in Montgomery, but up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, we had black buses. And so, and some of the black folks says, you know what? They've integrated the buses down in Montgomery, and blacks could sit on the front of white buses down there. Why can't we sit on some front of black buses, white buses up here? We said, because we don't have any white buses up here. They said, well, we'll get some so we can sit on the front of them. So guess what? Duke Powell, with all the money, big family, they came in and got the chart and pushed us out. And so they can have a white bus company out there. What Duke Powell company buses that could drive so black folks could sit on the front of white buses. They put our black buses out of business. They put our black cabs out of business. We had 2 movie theaters, Lincoln and Lafayette. Whites had 3 movie theaters. Guess what? They put our theaters out of business because blacks wanted to go to white theaters. They felt sitting in a white theater looking at the same damn movie. That made white ice was colder. So I'll stop there because I'm going on and on lecture, but you get my point though.
Yeah. You're talking about self-esteem. As to me, that's what I'm seeing. I'm hearing a conversation about self-esteem in terms of figuring out where's your head at. If your head is focused on the simple basic stuff, then you're not gonna get the advanced stuff. If you focus on playing checkers, then you'll never win a chess match. And business is a chess match. Employment and consumption is a checkers match. And so the chess master will always beat you if you're playing checkers and he's playing chess. And so I think that it's interesting that when you talk about how the businesses that were in the black community came to not exist anymore. If you think about that, right? If I'm thinking like a businessman, I'm thinking about ownership, power, and control, right? I'm thinking about, who owns what, et cetera, equity and all that. Somebody who's just looking for a job is going to be thinking, well, how much am I going to get paid every hour? Somebody who's just looking who's only trying to look cool or be comfortable is going to say, well, I want to just buy the product. I'm not really thinking about the distribution or the supply chain. I'm not thinking about the ownership or who gets what. All I'm thinking about is trying to get a product that makes me comfortable. So really, that's why one of the reasons why I push very hard for black people to educate our own children is because when you educate your children on economics at an early age, they can see the whole piece of the puzzle. I was out running this morning with my fiance, and that's what I told her. I was explaining to her how money was made and how the whole cycle, how the whole process works. And I said, the reason that you had, the Rockefellers and people that were able to make billions of dollars because they understood the whole process, the whole circle. But a worker only understands his little piece of the circle. The consumer only understands their little piece of the circle. And I believe that at an early age, our children need to see the whole ecosystem so they can figure out where they want to position themselves to have the power. Because if you don't position yourself to have the power, then you're going to be manipulated by people that have power. And so it doesn't mean all of our people got to be on board with that. Maybe it's almost like a little bit of a talented 10th kind of thing. Not talented 10th as far as people that went to Harvard and all that. I'm talking about talented 10th in terms of the people that actually have the courage for leadership, the people that have the commitment to guide the community in a certain way. And so what I'm really saying to everybody out here that, all you parents that have children, I would like to ask you to train your children to become the economic soldiers that represent the talented 10th for the 21st century, where they're going to guide the community. Everybody else might be thinking about trying to get to the parties or how to go buy the new Air Jordans when they come out or the new iPhones. But I want your children to be the ones who say, okay, let's figure out how we can own a piece of that. How do we set up the distribution process? How do we set up the supply chain? What is the monetization process? Who owns the factories? Who owns all the things that are part of this process? Because if you don't have somebody that's equipped to drive the car, then you're going to have problems. Everybody can't be a damn passenger in the car. Somebody got to get a goddamn driver's license. So, I need you to teach your kids how to drive the car, because we got too many passengers and not enough drivers. And guess what? When you try to sign to be a passenger, the white man shows up and says, "Well, our kids can drive. We'll drive you. We'll drive you to the other side of town and dump you in the river. That's what we're gonna do." So anyway, Dr. Anderson, I'm gonna let you get the last word. And by the way, everybody, hit that thumbs up button real quick. Please hit the thumbs up button. And on Instagram, if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's The Real Boyce Watkins on Instagram, or you can also follow the Black Financial Channel on Instagram. So follow that on Instagram. And Dr. Anderson's website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. Dr. Anderson, I'm gonna let you get the last word before we head on out of here. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave as we bounce out?
But yeah, I'd like to reemphasize what you just said. Your rights comes from what you own and control. Unfortunately, Black folks were put on the wrong track way back during the Civil Rights Movement. And what they're searching for rights, rather than searching for rights, that's a waste of time. The only thing a right means is a suggested, a possible opportunity. Opportunity ain't worth a quarter if you don't have the ownership and the control of the resources. I got an opportunity right now to go to Europe or to fly to the moon, but if I don't have the resources, I'm not going a damn place. You got to have the resources. And so Black folk need to be concentrate not on chasing rights, but chasing resources. And once you get those resources, what you own and control. All the other groups you're competing with, they learn that early in life in America. And that's why they don't put their money in your community. Black folk right now spend about 96% of all the annual income, disposable income that comes through Blacks' hands every year, Dr. Watkins. 96% goes right back into the white community. And out there, which goes back, about 3% of that go into minority, so-called immigrants groups coming into America that has set up businesses in the Black community. They get 3%. That makes it 98% going out of the Black community. Only 2% of the money that passes through Black folks' hands annually stays in the Black community and Black businesses. That means that Blacks basically aren't worth for 2% because they can't produce a tax base, can't produce jobs, can't produce products, can't produce services. And see, with this crisis we got right now, that means you're doubly handicapped. Where are you gonna get your resources from? You can't produce any jobs. And you mentioned earlier in your opening remarks that the unemployment rate's going up to about 15 or 20%. Even if it goes up to 25%, it still can't touch Black unemployment. Black unemployment right now, we have an structural institutional unemployment in the Black community right now. It's not what whites keep telling you. They tell you that to keep you blind, deaf, dumb, and looking in the wrong direction. Your unemployment rate right now is structurally 35% nationally. And we got a structural rate that in some of the major cities like Detroit is 48%, 48% in Baltimore, 49% in Pittsburgh, 51% in New York. That's your unemployment rate. And that's because that means those people those Blacks right now have no opportunities of being able to compete. And the white folks are talking about, well, our unemployment rate might go up to 20%. That can't even touch Black unemployment, because what Black unemployment really amounts to, nobody wants to call it that. I'm telling you, because you have a business school, it means it's called joblessness. See, in the Black community, unemployment is really joblessness, because all the other people work for their own businesses. 95 to 96% of all the Asian, Arabs, Hispanics, and whites work in their own businesses in their own communities. 98% of all Black folk work either in some level of government or in other people's communities. So it's joblessness. If you get your businesses where you hire your own people, you don't have to depend on whites for anything. And so I tell Black folk, it ain't about hating anybody. It's about learning to put your self-interest first and make sure your money bounce 8 to 12 times in your own community before it leaves. That's why Chinese right now, Chinese not gonna hire the Black folk. You ain't not gonna find any Black folk working in Chinese restaurants and Chinese neighborhoods. You go to Chinatown, any place in America, you're not gonna find any Black business in Chinatown. You're not gonna find any Black businesses in Jewish towns. You're not gonna find any Black business in Detroit, in Dearborn, and Arab town. You're not gonna find any Black business in Little Cuba, Little Havana, in Miami. Nobody will hire black folk, not that blacks put up business in their community. We got it back-ass backwards. And Martin Luther King figured that out right before he got assassinated. He said, I think I have to admit I was wrong. You cannot have social integration in America until you have economic integration. You cannot have economic integration until you begin to redistribute some of the resources and money back into the black community. And then right after he got assassinated, he said, what I've done is lead black folk into a burning building. And that's what I've been preaching in my books. All my books teach you how to play this game and learn how to play it. It's called a library pack. Tell them to get out there and read those books. And don't worry about criticizing me because I don't say what all the rest of the people say. I'm not trying to get along with whites or anybody else. The only people I'm trying to get along with in America is the same people I'm trying to get along with all my life. That's black people. I love black folk, even though a lot of them pull up short. I still love the major part of them, okay? And I had a good time with you again today. Tell your people to support us. I love them. Tell them to go buy those library packs and read the books and learn how to change their behavior and start practicing group economics and group politics with their own self-interest being first.
All right. Well, everybody, could you do me a favor real quick and please give a digital round of applause to Dr. Claud Anderson. Let him know how much you appreciate him. Let him know how much you love him. Just say something in the chat. Thank you. We love you. Something like that. Just let him know how you feel. It's very important we do that. Also, his library pack, which is $99 for all of his books and the DVD, is at powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. So take a visit to powernomics.com. This is the perfect time because you are home quarantined right now. I want to take a second and give thanks to those of you who gave in the chat. I did not mention your names. Normally I stop and I mention your names right when you support the channel. But when Dr. Anderson's speaking, I don't interrupt. I want him to talk. So I just want to quickly mention Willie Baggs, Diana Maddox, Kendra Griffin, Mark H. Nasir, Rob Mack, and Malik. Rob Mack mentioned Black Movie Night's the best night of the week. Yes, Black Movie Night, where we're building a Black Hollywood, Dr. Anderson. We realize we got a lot of Black filmmakers and Black actors and actresses right in our community, and we have distribution, which is what Hollywood always, would do for us, but we can do it ourselves. So we have Black Movie Night, where we get a few thousand people together online, and we watch Black movies. We talk to the directors, we support the films, things like that. So anybody who wants to come to the next Black Movie Night on April 2nd with Tierra KJ Williams, Roosevelt Mitchell III will be here, Noma Langan, Mushali Moses. The film is called Raising a Black Scholar, and it's all about the Black homeschool movement, how many millions of Black people now are taking their kids out of public schools and finding a way to homeschool. So if that's something that interests you, if you just want to support Black filmmakers, it's a good movie. Go to blackmovienight.net. That's blackmovienight.net. You can see the schedule and you can register for free. It won't cost you anything, sponsored by the Black Business School. Also, the other question, I saw Willie Baggs asked a question about the Dow. Why is the Dow doing well despite all the bad news? Well, that's going to be covered on the Black Financial Channel. So make sure you subscribe to theblackfinancialchannel.com. We're going to talk all about the Dow. Today's Dr. Anderson's time, so I'm just going to focus on that. Dub Black says that you love the Black Wealth Calendar. Anybody who wants to get one of the Black Wealth Calendars where you can put wealth principles on your refrigerator can go to blackwealthcalendar.com. That's blackwealthcalendar.com. So that's pretty much it. So Dr. Anderson, I want to say thank you very much. And I'm going to keep mentioning powernomics.com because I think it should be in everybody's vocabulary. And I want to say thank you very much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, I thank you. And you tell the people that I love Black folk, and I apologize if I'm too Black. I know a lot of times that people would not give money. Some of the richest Blacks in America would not give any money to the Harvest Institute, which is the only Black think tank we had in America, saying, well, Dr. Anderson is just too Black. And I'm sorry if I'm too Black, that I'm offending them by being too Black. But again, those are my people. I love them. And as a pilot, like I used to tell all my passengers on the plane, that if we lose cabin pressure at 30,000 feet and the mask fall down, put the mask on yourself first. Don't get up and try to save the world, save anybody else. Jesus Christ came here and been there. He's already hung on the cross. You don't have to save anybody else. Start learning how to save Black folk and put the mask on yourself on my planes and take care of my people, and we'll all land and be in safe and healthy condition. I thank you, and I enjoyed you again. And take care, buddy. I look for next week, and I'm gonna see how many of those people go buy the books this week. I'm gonna say that damn Boyce Watkins boy. He tell those people to read that book. They started reading. They read Boyce Watkins tell them to read. And so I love you, buddy.
Well, they know that I don't recommend a lot of people's books, a lot of people's stuff. I save it for stuff I really believe in, and I believe in Powernomics. I read Black Labor, White Wealth, the other book, and I mean that book just blew my mind. I said, okay, finally, here's a man who gets it. you were answering the questions that I always had that were properly answered by the public school system. So it was almost like the missing link, and I'm gonna tell you, if you guys read, my favorite was Black Labor, White Wealth. They're all good, but Black Labor, White Wealth just hit the nail on the head for me and transformed me in a way where I will read that book over and over again. You ever have like a favorite movie that's so good, like Set It Off? Remember the movie Set It Off? And I like that movie so much, I could watch it over and over and over again because I thought it was that good. Black Labor, White Wealth is like that. I'll read the chapters repeatedly because it helps you understand what you're dealing with, what you're up against, and that racism was not created in a day. This is hundreds of years of social conditioning and social order that they put in place in a very strategic manner to control every aspect of your life, because you are a caged animal to them. You are an asset, and their goal is to manage you. So you're not gonna manage me, no sir. So thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. I appreciate it.
One last thing, what do you think about the Black History Reader? Did you read that? Well,
yeah, I did read that too. I love all the books. I love them all. But Black Labor, White Wealth grabbed me. That was just, maybe it's because that was the first one. The other, all of them are good. I think the Black History Reader, that should absolutely replace history class for Black people. And why the hell you got your kids going to school learning how to honor George Washington when he used to beat slaves and rape Black women? And, come on, that don't even make no damn sense. So Black History Reader to me is that's what we need to do. We need to control all of that. Just take it all over.
Thank you, and thank you for all your support too, buddy. And you take care. And until next week, be blessed, okay? In all respects. Take care now.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody. You guys have a good day. See you soon.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV.